Let's update this little corner by swapping out the purse hook and adding some pizzazz to the welcome board. I've treasured this board for a long time, but I think it needs a little update to match the rest of my house decor. I began by taking everything out of the frame and grabbing my favorite fabric. I placed the frame onto the fabric to measure how much fabric will be needed to wrap around to the back of the frame. Then I cut out the fabric piece and sprayed the front of the frame with spray adhesive. I carefully placed the frame front side down onto the back side of the fabric, making sure the frame was centered on the fabric. Next, I folded the corners like a present and used my hot glue gun to secure the corners to the top and bottom of the frame. I measured how much fabric was needed to cover the inner edges of the frame and cut out the center square. Then I made diagonal cuts towards the inner corners of the frame. I noticed the fabric did not cover the inner corners completely because the frame inner edges are quite thick, so I used strips of the leftover fabric to cover the inner corners. Next, I glued down the fabric to the inner edges. Moving on to the photo clips board, I wanted to wrap it in the same fabric, so I cut a rectangular piece that was about 2 inches wider and taller than the board. I used the spray adhesive to attach the board to the back side of the fabric. Then I hot glued the fabric around the back of the board. I measured and marked the locations for the clips and hot glued them to the board. The letter board had fallen off the frame backing, so I hot glued it back on and then placed everything back into the frame. I added some of my favorite Bo and Kinsey Polaroid pictures and hung it back up. I absolutely love how this quick update turned out. Thanks for watching!